Hello, everyone, and welcome to this interview with Future Net Zero. I'm Johnny Bairstow, and today I'm joined by Michael McGowan from Ibstock and Mark Rose from Total. So thank you both for joining me. Michael, first of all, could you please introduce yourself, just so some of our audience who might not know what Ibstock do can find out?
Yeah, not a problem. Obviously, I'm Michael McGowan. I'm the Group Sustainability Manager for Ibstock PLC, and I've been in the manufacturing industry. This is my 45th year doing it. I've been with Ibstock for almost 30 years, and obviously Ibstock is a leading manufacturer and supplier of clay and concrete building products in the UK construction industry, and we specialise in products and systems for the building envelope and infrastructure in the UK. And one of the key things for us is our purpose is to build a better world and being at the heart of building. And we've been helping to shape homes, places, spaces in the UK for more than 200 years now.
And you're working with Mark now. So Mark, could you tell us about who you are, who you represent, and what you're doing with Ibstock?
Sure, Johnny. My name is Mark Rosa. I head up major business for Total Gas and Power. We are soon to be the #1 for volume supplier of gas in the UK, as well as #3 for power. Really exciting time. We are continue to develop our proposition and working with customers such as Ibstock to build long and sustainable relationships that work well for both of us. Within major business, we supply gas, we supply power. We also work with generators to secure renewable power that enable us to supply that on to our customers, as well as that we source from the wholesale market. So really exciting time for Total in establishing and growing some really important customer relationships that we want to have for a long time.
Well, thank you both of you for the introduction. So we'll jump right into it. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Ibstock has become the first building products manufacturer in the UK to source its electricity from 100% renewables. Is that right?
It's absolutely correct, and it's something that we're proud of taking the lead in the industry again, especially as a leading sustainable business.
And why is it so important to become a sustainable business? Why is going green becoming important? And why do you think it's significant that you're the first to do so?
Well, combating climate change is a main priority for our business as we work towards becoming the most sustainable manufacturer of clay and concrete products in the UK. And that switch to pure green electricity will reduce our tonnes of carbon per tonne of production. And it's making strong progress towards a key business metric in the business, which is 15% reduction of carbon based on 2015. And what that's doing is accelerating our journey to net zero carbon. And I think it's important to remember that we can't do this on our own. And our relationship with Total goes back to 2013. And it's clear that we both have a shared ambition to be net zero businesses. And that benefits both businesses, but it benefits society and the wider UK communities in which we all operate.
Yeah, and we're all going to have to reach net zero. It's mandated by the government. So I think it's great that you're leading the way for your sector in terms of doing that.
Excellent, thank you. And I think it's key to remember as well, and I think Total's ambition states that clearly, that you don't just want to get to net zero by 2050. If you're doing that, you're just complying with the law. You want to make sure you do that earlier and make sure you're taking that lead and being seen as sustainable businesses.
Was it an intimidating decision? And it's a big investment that is required to kind of decarbonize your whole business. It's a big leap. Why did you decide to do that in the first place? And what was it that made you pick Total as your partner?
Well, like any business, the net zero journey has got to be both economical and sensible, and it's got to align, and it's being driven by legislation as well. And as a market leader, and also being an energy intensive sector, we've got to demonstrate to our stakeholders, investors, shareholders, and the wider public that what we're doing is right, and we're taking that leadership position. And it's good that we're working with Total as well, because we're demonstrating that we're supporting a marketplace of uptaking renewable energy from grid and through our suppliers as well.
And it's important for it to stack up economically, as you mentioned, isn't it? Because ultimately, unless things make economic sense, businesses aren't going to be able to adopt them. And we need businesses to be an important part of this journey towards net zero. So as the first in your sector to have done this, do you think it's given you that competitive edge?
I don't think it's always about competitive edge, because if you look at a lot of our customers and competitors, they've made commitments to different things as well. And to me, it's all about showing them what we are doing, and hopefully they'll follow along with us. And it's just allowing that traction to happen, and to make sure that through suppliers that uptake of renewable is being seen to be done, and then more and more people will buy into it as well.
And Mark, to bring you in here briefly, sorry, I've been concentrating on Michael so far. But what was it like for you to work with Ibstock and deliver these things? Michael said that the relationship's been there since 2013, so it's been long lasting, and it's only stepping up as time goes on. Is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the one thing we try and do, one of our strap line in the UK, if you like, is try and be the UK's most trusted energy supplier. And you can only do that by building strong relationships that can be maintained over the long term. We've been in gas for probably almost 30 years, really, but we've only been a significant player in power in the last 7 or 8 years, and therefore being able to grow our proposition and the way we work with customers like Ibstock is really important. And I think of the oil super majors in the world, the Energy Voice published not so long ago, I think just last week, that we as Total are the most ready of the super majors to get to carbon net zero. I think we had a carbon transition score of 9.3 out of 10, whereas BP and Shell, some of the bigger oil majors, were slightly behind that. That for us gives us confidence in our supply business, because we've got a parent that's taken this really, really seriously. If you look at the investment profile of Total, it's evolved significantly, and it's evolved quickly as a result of the COVID pandemic. In that, prior to 2020, we were investing $1.5 to $2 billion a year in low carbon electricity generation and renewable generation. That's increased to $3 billion as a result of COVID, and really accelerating our need to evolve. And that can be demonstrated with things like the investment in the Seagreen offshore wind farm, the investment in partnership with Macquarie that's just been announced this week on a 1.5 gigawatt offshore wind farm off the East Anglian coast. That all adds to what we can do for customers like Ibstock, to form the right type of contract, the right type of relationship over the long term. So, it's an exciting journey for us. It's a challenge for every supplier in the UK to meet the needs of their customers. We're a big supplier in the public sector. The public sector, as you would imagine, are right at the forefront of the climate emergencies and having to get their carbon emissions reduced. Therefore, it's just a constant in our discussions right now. So it's really exciting to be able to evolve our relationship and have the relationship with Ibstock, that we can develop what we do, rather than just, it's not a you have a need, we have a contract to supply. It has to evolve, and hopefully that's what we've been able. That's why we're still supplying, I guess, after into our 9th year.
Yeah, like you say, everything is constantly changing, and I think any successful relationship in this field of decarbonising and reaching net zero needs to reflect that and be flexible itself. You touched on coronavirus there, which I think we'll have to mention at some point in the interview. It would be remiss not to. But I'll leave that one just for now. But you mentioned trust, which I thought was very interesting, because it reflected on the question that I asked Michael about, for a company whose bread and butter isn't necessarily energy and so on, it's quite a leap into the unknown at first to kind of get started on this net zero journey. And it must be absolutely vital that there's trust between the two of you, that this can all be done in a way that not only doesn't damage Ibstock's business, but actually helps it.
It is absolutely fundamental and key. Without that trust, you wouldn't be with a supplier. You're in a world where you can jump ship as often as you want, just based on something called price. But it's not just about that. It's about that trust. It's the values of each business, and it's what each party brings to that collaboration and that partnership over the long term.
What do you think the rest of your industry is looking like right now, Michael? And is it headed in the right direction?
I think overall our industry we get it. I think it's clear that Ibstock are the leaders. We are taking the lead, and our competitors are coming along with us. They may slightly behind, but we are definitely ahead in setting the example. And you can only set that example by having the right partnership. I think working with Total shows that example of a good collaboration and partnership.
And there are obstacles on this journey, aren't there? It's not always simple to decarbonize because it's going to require changes in business models and changes in the way things that might have been done for a long time. You've got to change the way you do things.
So the reality is about obstacles. Decarbonisation is difficult, but it's not impossible. And like anything else you do in life, there will be obstacles. And as a business like us, you've got to address certain things. So there'll be roadblocks. So those roadblocks, or it could be technology, it could be funding, but for every roadblock, there's an accelerator. So it's funding routes, it's green investment, it's the partnerships, it's the totals, it's the technological partnerships that you have. So you've got to look at what's currently available in terms of technology and partnerships and collaborations, what's going to give you those incremental changes on that journey that you were taking, and what are the future technologies. So there's more than one pathway to overcome obstacles, but they're all overcomable. We can get there.
Mark, how would you say Total helps approach those obstacles? Because the obstacles are going to be different for different customers, and they're going to be different in nature every time, I suppose, because there's never a one-size-fits-all solution to any of this. At Total, how do you go about identifying the obstacles and overcoming them?
There's a couple of points to make, Johnny, and what the first thing is that, and hopefully Michael would vouch for this, we're committed to supplying and supporting customers where we can. One thing don't subscribe to, and our business doesn't subscribe to, is trying to do everything for everyone. I've been part of businesses before where you actually deviate a little bit away from your core when you try and be all things to all men. And in the end, the reality is you don't do anything particularly well. You do lots of little bits quite well. We've been quite keen to focus on the areas we know we can support clients. First and foremost is supply, the supply of power, the supply of gas. Then there is decarbonising that supply. And then there is additional services that we can deliver and we know we can support. Not blue sky thinking about, tell us anything you want, Michael, and we'll go and find it. Because the reality is, if your sink breaks, you don't call for the joiner to come and fix it. You try and get specialists in that area. So our proposition is circled around supply, is to support the decarbonisation of that, whether that's different types of renewable contracts, whether that's carbon offsetting for gas, because you can get renewable gas, but it comes at quite a significant premium. So there are methods of offsetting the emissions from your gas emissions, your direct gas emissions, by offsetting. There are options around that, which we try and support. And then we try and evolve into things, solar. We as part of Total, we own SunPower, which is a massive solar business. We can support customers with solar. We can also support with EV charging. And the exciting bit really is, I think it will continue to develop. The one thing about Total right now is we are investing heavily in the proposition for our customers. We're investing heavily in renewable electricity. The business is got an aim to get to 30 million customers by 2025. We've been very vocal about, as a group, about how many customers we want to have. Therefore, everything we're doing is about supporting customers. We've got about 9 million right now. We're well on that path to getting to 30 million. That's across Europe, I must say, not just in the UK. As I mentioned earlier, we've got strong positions in both. But for me, it's really important that Michael has confidence and trust in what we will deliver, and that and we are clear about what we can and cannot do, because that's quite important. Fundamentally, in the UK, yes, propositions evolve and things develop. Lots of supply businesses have looked at moving into different areas. A number of them have stepped back when they've realised that it hasn't worked. There'll be certain elements of the decarbonisation journey for Ibstock Total won't be the right partner for. But then I don't think any energy supplier would be. It'll be a specialist in a specific area. So for us, it's important that we maintain that trust by being honest, but doing doing what we can do and delivering it really well.
So what do you think are the most important things to really get right? Is that all about a suitable supply contract and getting the right technology mix in there? If a customer is looking to decarbonize, how do you set about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to the right contract for the right customer. It's all about understanding that contract. We have a methodology around. We want to focus on trust. You mentioned that. Expertise is focusing on what we can deliver well, and certainty, being a supplier that's here over the long term. And with the ambition and the investment in the group, hopefully that is clear to see, because there's been a lot of changes in the UK supply market, and there continues to be so, and it's uncertain to know who's going to be doing what and what their proposition is going to be over even the reasonably near time. Whereas I think we are quite clear that we're here to stay, and a lot of our ambitions are about 5 years, 10 years down the line.
It's about working with your customers really then, and identifying
Absolutely.
What they need.
Absolutely, and our growth has come through collaborating with customers and collaborating with partners. There's in many respects, there's no golden bullet. It is just about asking, listening, being agile, and delivering.
And you touched on it there, actually. You mentioned renewable gas. Some people listening might say, okay, well, I don't know much about that. Well, how can gas be renewable? And they might be a customer or in an industry that has a heavy reliance on gas more than electricity. So they might not need renewable power from wind farms, but they might need to decarbonize their gas supply and not know how to do that. Could you explain what that means and what you can offer them?
So the reality is there is a finite amount of biomethane reliable sources of renewable gas. One of the channels I look after is our embedded generation channel. And we work with generators, and we work with providing power purchase agreements as well as gas purchase agreements, which tends to be from renewable gases into the system. The problem with renewable gases is really expensive. A renewable gas certificate will cost around about £8 a megawatt hour. When you look at that's well over probably 10 times what a REGO is in the renewable side, and hence we've developed some carbon offsetting capability to enable customers to offset the carbon emissions of the gas in a slightly different way. Now that comes in a number of sources. We provide accredited gold standard carbon offsetting projects, and these can vary in location. They could be UK tree planting, it could be somewhere across Europe or indeed across the world, and they come at different levels and different price points. But in essence, we will find the right project to meet the needs of the customer around the amount of emissions, the story they want to tell, the potential additionality, and indeed the amount of emissions they want to offset. So to be honest, that is still fairly new, but it is something that is appealing to customers who don't, because there is an economic discussion here, an economic consideration for customers. There is a bit of a cost versus carbon debate right now. There'll come a time, I'm sure, where it's all about carbon, it's all about emissions, it's all about hitting the targets that have been put in place. But right now there is a little bit of a consideration to be had.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Because the thing for me as well, there's no doubt that over the next several decades, we're going to have to achieve a really dramatic transition in the journey to net zero. And without those collaborations, and I totally agree with Mark says there, that offsetting is one route, and it will play a key part in the early stages of any net zero journey as a business. But over and above that, you also have to look at what National Grid are doing as well, because they've obviously set their ambitions to 2050. So they've said that by the end, almost 2050, there'll be virtually zero carbon gas on the network. So that'll be made up of hydrogen and biogases, that type of thing. So those collaboration and partnerships going forward with your supplier and looking at the horizon scanning, what else is coming your way as well, all has to be planned in and worked together.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting, Johnny, you think about, we see, gas is the cleanest fossil fuel. But because coal has pretty much been phased out, we probably see gas as one of the dirtier fuels that exist in the UK now. However, if you go to other less developed countries such as India, who are still heavily reliant on coal, there's a massive opportunity there to gas and to play a big part in carbon carbon reduction and decarbonisation globally. If you look at Total and what we are trying to achieve is essentially increase investment and continually increase investment in renewable generation, develop gas so it becomes less carbon intense and indeed is developed in countries where it's needed, and then slowly start reducing our reliance on oil and the impact that has. And that's something we've just got to do as a group. And obviously a lot of the other oil majors are focusing on as well.
And I agree with what Mark's saying there as well, because if you look at globally, there's lots to be done. But if in the UK we can develop technology quicker and at a faster pace than anyone else, it will make a huge difference. They can learn the lessons from that as well. And it's just so important.
Well, that's why it's important to have leaders, isn't it, on the national scale, in terms of, the UK will be hopefully taking even more of an important role in climate leadership with COP26 coming up. And it's important for businesses to take lead of their sectors as well. Like you said, Ibstock is kind of driving ahead in your industry. And you need that because a lot of people need examples to encourage them to decarbonize. They need the technologies to trickle down. And yeah, I think completely it's important to have leaders to kind of inspire, because it's quite an aspirational thing to do, to decarbonize the whole economy in the next 30 years. It's going to take some inspiration and aspiration, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And this whole journey, what we can't forget is that there's a people element to every journey. And if you don't take your people along with it, now Ibstock is an example. We've heavily invested in excess of £100 million just in the last decade. And then in 2019, we invested £54 million in a state-of-the-art factory in Leicestershire. And that's the most energy efficient and carbon efficient factory of its kind in Europe, if not the world as well.
Yeah.
And a very small part of that journey, and going back to collaboration and doing things differently with Total as well. We started out at the Leicester site on EV charging points. And that's a partnership we've had with Total for about 18 months now. And we're gradually rolling that out to all of our factories. But again, it's all about people. You've got to make sure you engage with the right people at every part of the business so that it becomes a success. Otherwise, it just won't work.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're taking people along with you, because I think the workers themselves might not have cared that much about net zero or known that much about it until they're the ones working in the most efficient factory in Europe. Then I'd imagine they become interested quite quickly. And in the same way, if in the car park, if there's EV charging hubs, it opens everyone's minds, doesn't it? And makes sure that they can be kind of part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And give you an example, because we have now our company car list, about a third of it is now full electric or hybrid. But the EV charging points are not just there for company car users. If an employee decides to upgrade to a hybrid or a full electric, they can book slots on these new EV charging points, and they're cloud-based, so we can monitor and use everything properly.
Well, and people in your supply chain, I'm sure, come and visit, and they're in your car park, and they see that you've got the racks of chargers over there, and they think, why haven't we got those back at our head office?
Yeah,
we leave a suite of business cards around just in case any of Michael's supply chain. But I think it's interesting, though. You say it does feel like 30 years is not a long time to get to carbon net zero, but 2050. However, if you look back, I joined the supply industry back in 2004, 2005 in my first key account management job. And at that time, 50% of the UK's power came from coal-fired power stations. It was only 15 years ago. And if you think about, the carbon intensity then was something like 475 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. Looking at it now, I'm not sure of the latest numbers, but it'll be significantly below half of that, I would have thought. Therefore, we have made quite a transition in 15 years. And certainly us as a business have also been challenged to look at carbon net zero locally. So we've got our own strategy for 4 areas, really. The first key area is our people and how we support that. Now, whether that's cycle to work schemes, EVs for essential car users, even EVs for everybody at some point in time. There's also what are we doing as a business, our buildings, making sure we're as efficient and carbon efficient as we possibly can. Our customer proposition is the biggest part. That's vital to us. We have to be able to continue to develop and evolve to offer customers likes of Ibstock new solutions. But again, as I said earlier, solutions we know we can deliver well. And then that leads nicely into our group links. And obviously within Total, we are investing heavily in what our customer propositions will be globally. You know, we have SunPower, it's a solar business. We own Saft, which is a battery technology business, a battery business. We are continuing to evolve and add to that proposition over time. But what I am committed to in the UK, we will offer that to customers when we've got confidence that we can deliver it well as part of our overall solution.
It's a great overview of what you're both doing. I need to ask about the coronavirus. I mentioned it earlier. It's an impossible subject to get away from at the moment. But where do you both see things going to close out this interview? What are your closing thoughts on what's going to happen next for both you and, you know, the wider picture in terms of the lead up to COP26 and the green recovery?
Yeah, COVID has impacted every business throughout the whole world. But what it's done for us is, I believe it's accelerated our journey to net zero as well. And just to give a quote from the UK's Business Secretary, Alok Sharma, he said last year he believes that the world is at a tipping point. And he says where businesses, civil society, and individuals and the local governments are realising we need to build back better. And at Ibstock, we realise that as well. And that's why there's great momentum for that green recovery in the UK. And we believe that will happen throughout the world as well. And as a market leader and an energy intensive sector as well, when we can't forget that, we've got a lot of work to do. But it's vital that we demonstrate leadership in terms of reducing carbon. And by doing that, what we'll do is share that knowledge and share best practice throughout the country. We've been in business for 200 years. We've invested heavily to reduce carbon. We can demonstrate that compared to the 1970s, we are 66% less energy and carbon per tonne of product, and it's 30% less compared to the 1990s. So you can see those transitional changes happening, and they're happening quicker again. So if we want to be in business in another 200 years, we've got to continue that sustainability journey, be the most sustainable manufacturer, and make sure we collaborate and partner. And without those collaborations and partnerships with the likes of Total, you won't be in business. You just got to make sure you adapt and change to what's happening in the world.
Yeah, it's essential. It's absolutely essential, I think. And so the next few years are going to prove vital. But I look forward to catching up with you more in the future, Michael, about the business's decarbonisation journey. Before we leave, Mark, where does Total see things going in the run-up to COP26 and the green recovery? More of the same?
Yeah, and I think we've been quite clear on our long-term goals, and I would echo exactly the wording that Michael used. Is COVID in many respects has accelerated what Total as a group are doing. I mean, some of the ambitions are no secret and haven't been a secret for some time, but essentially what COVID's enabled us to do is to accelerate the pace of what we're doing. Obviously, things have changed by, COVID's impacted everyone, the amount of oil we use, the amount of power we use, the amount of gas that we use for a period of time, etc. Therefore, hence Patrick Poyney, our CEO's announcement in, I think it was Q2 last year, that we would increase our investment in low carbon electricity generation, because actually we recognise we need to now move faster, because the world will be a different place, as a result of COVID. I think locally, from a COVID perspective, our real focus was making sure we were as flexible as we could be and support our customers where we possibly could. We couldn't do everything for everyone, but at the same time, we have long-standing partnerships that we would work closely with. That was really important. I think never more so important than it was, last year. And as a result of that, and our, being able to have what I believe we've got a very engaged customer-facing team. Actually, last year was quite a successful year from our business perspective by replicating all the good stuff we do. we continued to grow. Yes, managing contracts, managing customers was harder than it had ever been because of the impact to consumption levels and forecasting, etc. The COVID, we'd never been through it before, so no one really knew, other than the financial crash sort of 12 years ago, 13 years ago. We'd never been through anything like this, so it was learning for everyone. But I think we as a business managed to mitigate it pretty well. All of a sudden it was really interesting. We're competing with our competitors over how accessible we are, how quickly we could get everyone working from home, how proactive we could be in helping customers manage their positions, and indeed how we continue to operate BA. We didn't miss a week working BAU, and we managed to get 500 people working from home. So I think we as a business thankfully managed it well, so that customers didn't experience too much in the way of problems. It's really important as we come out. Who knows how quickly we're going to come out of things this year. I guess everyone's guess is as good as each other, but it's important that it is clear to the market and clear to our customers that there's no change. We continue to operate the way we did, and we continue to support in the way we have done pre-COVID.
Thank you very much. And I completely agree. I think ultimately going green and becoming more sustainable is more important than ever for businesses to future-proof themselves. These times seem quite unstable, but things are only heading one way. And I think businesses can make sure they're on the right side ethically and economically, to be honest, as things go forward with collaborations like this. So I really enjoyed talking with both of you, and I look forward to catching up in the future.
Excellent, Johnny. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you. Speak soon.